The Champions League is coming to an end this season, but before we get to the finals, we need to see who's going to be playing in those finals. So today, we're going to take a look at the semi-finals and what a set of quarterfinals that was to set up some brilliant clashes for this upcoming semi-final round. So, as I normally do with the Premier League, the Champions League, we're going to go through last round's predictions, see what I got right, see what I got wrong, and then we're going to jump in to the real subject of the video, and that is those semi-final clashes. And we're going to start off with Manchester City versus Bayern Munich. I honestly thought that Manchester City would beat Bayern Munich, and I was correct. They did so in quite emphatic fashion too. City absolutely dominated Bayern in Manchester and managed to play out a 1-1 draw in Germany, but it could have easily been a 1-0 win for them. I did think we'd see City win, but I didn't expect it to be such a dominant performance from them. They're going to be in a very good place going into the semi-finals. And then we look at Benfica versus Inter Milan. Now I thought that Benfica would beat Inter Milan, but I was wrong. I feel like this is a common theme in my Champions League predictions, as I doubted that they'd make it this far, but they just keep proving me wrong. They cruised to a victory in Portugal before Benfica fought back in Italy, but Inter held their own. They move on to Real Madrid versus Chelsea. Now, I don't think it was ever in doubt that Real Madrid would beat Chelsea. Lampard had just taken over as Chelsea manager shortly before these clashes, so it was a very tall task for the former Chelsea man. Real Madrid were never really troubled by Chelsea as they beat them 2-0 in Spain and in England quite comfortably. They are favourites to win the Champions League for a reason though. And finally, this season's Serie A champions versus last season's Serie A champions. AC Milan have been a thorn in Napoli's side this season, beating them twice in their previous 4 meetings, and they beat them 1-0 in Milan before playing out a 1-1 draw in Naples. It was a very tight set of fixtures. I think most of Milan's Champions League fixtures have been quite tight this season, but still, they've made it this far, so they must be doing something right, I guess. Those were my quarterfinal predictions. As you saw, we only got 2 out of the 4 correct, so not our best showing. We did better on the round of 16, but we move. And yes, it is time for the semi-finals, and they are some very, very juicy clashes. We've got Real Madrid versus Manchester City and Inter Milan versus AC Milan. So I'm going to start with Real Madrid versus Manchester City, and I think this really is the battle of the favourites. Personally, I had billed this as the clash of the final before it became apparent that that match could not happen. But I do think whoever wins this match will go on to win the whole thing, as it's a very big clash for these 2 brilliant sides, 2 of the favourites to win the whole thing. Manchester City recently climbed to the summit of the Premier League and are enjoying a brilliant unbeaten run in all competitions. Real Madrid, on the other hand, currently find themselves 3rd in La Liga and have dropped points in multiple recent fixtures. This clash last season was an absolute classic as they played out a 4-3 match in Manchester before Real Madrid scored 3 goals after 90 minutes to see them come from behind to progress to the finals, which of course they eventually won. This season though, Manchester City do have Erling Haaland, who has been in some brilliant form recently and broke the record for the most goals scored in a single Premier League season. Haaland currently has 51 goals to his name after 46 appearances in all competitions, and under Pep Guardiola, we've seen Haaland develop into a much more complete striker. He's playing much better with his teammates, holding up the ball much better, and all around just being a better striker than we saw when he arrived, and the goals back that up. But that's not to mention the other players in this amazing side. You've got Kevin De Bruyne, you've got Jack Grealish, you've got Bernardo Silva, and they've all been having great seasons in this City side. I think Jack Grealish himself has definitely grown in to the Man City way of playing football, and he looks a lot better than he did last season. I'm happy for him, you know. But it's not just their attacking midfielders who've been performing well, their backline has been fantastic as well this season, with Akanji and Stones performing brilliantly alongside Ake and Diaz. Pep has seen Man City catch up and overtake Arsenal all with a game in hand over their title rivals, and that has no doubt filled the squad with even more confidence than they already had. At one point in the season, it looks like Arsenal, they had an insurmountable number of points over Manchester City, but fast forward to today, with a game in hand, Man City look to have secured the title once again, but it is still very close. Real Madrid have not been consistent this season, as I mentioned earlier. They currently sit 3rd in La Liga, recently losing to Real Sociedad, Girona and Villarreal. They did just win the Copa del Rey though, so they do have that going for them. Sometimes they score odd goals, sometimes they lose to a side quite lower down. So yeah, they've not been consistent this season. They did win La Liga last season, but unfortunately do not look like they're going to be retaining that title for this season. I think Barcelona pretty much nailed on as La Liga winners this late into the season anyway. I don't think Real Madrid really challenge for that anymore. But last season Real Madrid did pull out some real comebacks throughout their campaign, especially in the Champions League, and we'll be looking to repeat that this season. Well, I think realistically they'll be looking to dominate from the off and not have to come back again. But either way, they're going to look to pull through in this campaign as well. Looking at domestic form, they don't look great, but we know they always turn up in the Champions League. I mean, I think they're the side that's won the Champions League the most, if I'm not mistaken, so it's pretty hard to call how either side will do, but I think Real Madrid, despite domestic form, do have a great claim to being champions of this competition once again. Benzema is in brilliant form, recently netting a hat-trick against Almeria, and paired with Vinicius, they are a very, very lethal attacking side. I mean, we saw that in last season's Champions League, and that's just come into more of its own this season. It's the defence which has let down Real Madrid, as they've been shipping goals recently after they did quite well giving a clean sheet throughout April, so it's just the inconsistency which could cost Real Madrid when it matters most. Especially for the likes of Haaland bearing down on them, and also Alvarez, he's been in brilliant form as well, as a backup striker, scoring as many goals as he had. It's crazy. My English bias may be showing, but I do think Manchester City will go all the way. Looking at recent form and both squads side by side, I do see Manchester City having the edge. It'll be a very tough set of matches, and I can see it being a very tight affair for both sides, but I backed Man City from the start, and I do believe that Haaland is that missing piece which gives City the trophy that has avoided them thus far. I would not be surprised if Real did win this clash though. As we know, they have a very quality squad, and under the magic of the Champions League, anything can happen. So I am backing Manchester City here, but I would not be surprised if Real Madrid qualified ahead of them. So we'll have to see. But I do think Pep's Sky Blues should be able to go to the finals and have a very, very good shot at winning it if they do. And then move on to AC Milan versus Inter Milan. Yes, it's a Milan Derby in the semi-finals. What an amazing game to have. The last time these two sides faced off in the semi-finals was in the 2002-2003 campaign, in which AC Milan progressed through due to away goals. Yes, they both played the same stadium, but because AC Milan were the away side for that fixture, they got the away goal. A bit of a shithouse way to win it. AC Milan would go ahead and win that competition after beating Juventus on pens. And then they've also met in the 04-05 quarterfinals too, which birthed this iconic picture. Milan won that one too, but collapsed to Liverpool in the finals, which as an Englishman, we know all too well. But besides that, both teams have been enjoying some decent seasons, but are a lot different from last season. Last season, AC Milan won the league with Inter Milan finishing runners-up, while this season, Inter are 4th and Milan find themselves in 5th. Inter do find themselves in the finals of the Coppa Italia though, so do have a shot at winning some silverware alongside the Champions League, whereas Milan, their only chance of getting some silverware is this Champions League campaign. So they'll be giving their all to make sure they can salvage something from this season. Out of their meetings this season, Inter have won 2 of the 3 matches, and generally they've had a better season than AC Milan, I'd say, and they've been coming to a better run of form recently too, probably when it matters most towards the end of the season. But AC Milan have no doubt been helped by the resurgent form of Rafael Leao, who has once again found himself playing an important role in that quarter-final win over Napoli. He set up the winning goal, so yeah, he's very important for this AC Milan side. He can win matches on his own. Magnan has also returned, which is huge for Napoli, as their backup keeper Tatarusanu was not up to the level that Milan required, and with Magnan back, they can give a better account of themselves in this clash. Yeah, Mike Magnan, brilliant keeper. He's going to do bits for AC Milan. He might even keep them in this semi-finals, but we do have to see, of course. It was their defence that helped them achieve the Scudetto last season, and while that hasn't been so effective this season, it has definitely improved towards the tail end. They went through a rough patch earlier in the season, which is why they currently sit in 5th place, but even though they had a bad run, they did see off Spurs and ensured they had a spot in the quarterfinals. The aforementioned Rafael Leao has played a big part in Milan's season and has single-handedly won them matches on occasion, being very integral to their attack. Leao will have to give his best to make sure Milan have the best chances of making it through to the finals, as Inter Milan are currently looking like the better side for the most part. It will be a very tough clash for both Milan sides, as Inter's attacking force of Lukaku and Lautaro are finding form, and it's a very dangerous time for AC Milan. They're going to be vital for Inter's final hopes. I do think Inter Milan are the stronger team at the moment, and I can see them besting their Milan rivals over these 2 legs. Personally, I do prefer AC Milan over Inter Milan, but just looking at their sides, looking at their performances, looking at recent form, Inter Milan just do look like the better side, and I think they'll be the ones meeting City in the finals. And if they do, it's going to be a very interesting clash, because I have counted out AC Milan quite a bit in this Champions League campaign, so who knows? All I know for certain is that the atmosphere over these 2 legs in the San Siro will be immense. Both Milan sides, they share a stadium, and they just divide the attendance by who is the home side. So yeah, it's going to be crazy atmosphere in the San Siro. And yeah, it's going to be one to watch for sure. Those are my Champions League semi-finals predictions. I'm hoping we see a Manchester City Inter Milan final. But again, anything could happen. It could be Real Madrid, AC Milan for all we know. But yeah, if you have any predictions of your own, please leave them in the comments below. I always enjoy seeing what other people are thinking. But obviously, my predictions are correct. And I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.